Hi, welcome Jada Army. If we sound weird, we just encountered Archangel Michael. He is not for the faint of heart. Anyways, we're gonna...
not to mention just honing into our personal abilities in general.
Being forced into it, too.
Yeah, it's a rough playing field out here.
Yeah, look, you never stop leveling up and gaining experience, and it is jarring.
It can be.
We're jarred. We're not jarred! No, it's not jarring.
No.
It shakes you.
It does, but it's also part of the... Not the candle going out immediately.
I don't like that. No, the flame is still there.
Okay.
That was a truth, calm, home candle. And the truth, there was some truth.
There was some truths.
I don't feel calm.
Virgo's all about telling the truth.
Yeah, Virgo is about telling the truth. So we're going to get in on these entities. We're going to start with...
You know who you're starting with.
We're going to start with Baba Yaga, but I'm also going to light another candle before I light Baba Yaga's, because I feel like it's a necessity. So here, hold that while I go do that.
Oh, yay. Okay.
But we're also talking about
Mary Magdalene.
I guess I'm lighting a blue candle because it's needed.
And is it sticking down?
Not really. Ooh, look at that wick. It's right there. Podcast things may leave this in, may not. Depends on how quiet we are. We're doing setup. We were not prepared to do this episode. We were actually going to skip it, but then we were urged to not do so.
Yeah, by one of the
Not sticking.
One of the spirits that you wouldn't expect. Honestly, Archangel Michael.
Yeah, we just
insisted we get this done. So we can, the sooner we talk about this, we can talk about him.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the vibe that we both got.
We're here to educate and entertain.
Yes, and whether this falls on deaf ears or not, that is what we're supposed to be doing, apparently.
Yeah.
It was a weird experience, guys. You just had to be there. I don't even know how to explain it. There's no explaining it.
Yeah, and that's one of the funny things about spirituality, right? I like to believe that our tribe is here. Our tribe is listening to us, and people who believe in spiritual phenomena are listening to us more than anybody, right? I mean,
more than anybody that's discrediting or thinks.
Right. Like, I'm sure if you've been here before, you know that we are skeptical ourselves to a certain level, but we are not here to impress any skeptics along the way. Like, that's not.
We like to share evidence, things like stories that were told over the course of history, as well as personal things about how to practice, how to speak to different entities. It's like talking to somebody else over the phone, okay? It's just that once your clairs are open, you know who's on the other end, what their vibe is, and what their eye color is, and it's just a weird time. And we're both really in that weird headspace, but we need to finish doing this. So we're going to finish it because we talked about talking about them before, and we want to follow up our word.
Right.
So it's hard for us to get out of the weird headspace because of the experience that we just had, but we both had it together. And I feel like this is where it's not talked about, because having this experience by yourself is just hard to explain.
It is. And it can drive a person mad if they're not ready when they experience it. And we learned something new about validation when it comes to
seeking it all the time.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Like, when you know something, and you don't have to seek validation through You don't necessarily have to seek validation through divination or other people. Sometimes it can be helpful
to find it yourself. Within yourself. It's good to have, but if you have it so much it's a crutch, like I was yelled at right in front of Nana, a spiritual guru, she heard it too, to not always use my tarot cards.
And we can all tap in to ultimate truth. Some people call that the Akashic Records. Some people call that source. You know, there's lots of different things, but we can all tap into ultimate truth.
It takes practice.
It does take practice, and you have to work on your discernment.
And you have to be prepared, man.
You cannot be in your ego and be seeing ultimate truth at the same time, because your ego will cloud your judgment.
And ego could be a form of seeking validation or confirmation through other people, even though you have it within your own self. Anyways, with that being said, that was probably a channeled message. You're welcome. Let's get into Baba Yaga, who actually, her name is Yaga, not Baba Yaga. If you call her Baba Yaga, you are putting her at a place that you may not need to, because she doesn't enjoy you coming at her like grandma when she's not your grandma.
Right, so Baba is a title.
Baba is a title. Like meaning, grandma or old woman, it's a respectful term, kind of crone. Like Mr. or Mrs. You could say crone. There is some debate on that. Let's talk about meeting her, though, because we talked about Michael, but this episode is about Baba Yaga. Meeting her energy was a whirlwind, right? It was... You sought her out, but if you don't know her, why the fuck are you in her house?
But also, seeking her out is how you get to know her.
Yes, but just don't expect to have her pull out the chair for you, because even though you're a guest, she does not care.
She's not even going to open the door for you.
You got to come in with the knowledge that shit's about to get real.
Yeah, when you enter, the lesson ensues.
Yes, and that is, we're going to add on to that more. She's a Slavic Russian folklore figure. A lot of her... it's however you want to do it.
I mean, yeah.
A lot of her lore was oral tradition told over the course of time. She's been mentioned in pop culture by John Wick. You know, we love Keanu Reeves. Love him. But his character mentioned her because... John Wick is a Russian, right? Is he Russian? Slavic, boogie, like he's boogeyman. That's his whole spiel. John Wick. You don't know. She doesn't know.
Never watched.
The audacity. Anyways, no, but she's mentioned in pop culture. There's fairy tales that you can buy that are all oral tradition that were written down. And also there is a bit of a back and forth about whether or not certain very famous companies that make money off of fairy tales got certain stories from certain origins.
Like Hansel and Gretel.
Or The Prince and the Frog.
Yeah.
So she is considered in historical based oral storytelling and history as a witch or a fae or possibly a goddess.
There's a fine line
between what she actually is and what she has or has not done as an entity base. Okay? There were... I can't even... Scare tactics about whether or not she may or may eat children. But in any of her lore, she did not, in fact, eat any children. Okay? I have to say that. Let's see. Her house moves in all different directions and is on chicken feet in the very middle part of a woods. Okay? It goes to different dimensions. She has servitors, if you're a witch. If you're not a witch, guardians that do certain things for her. That's it in her house, because she's... When we met her, she said she was a witch and that she's not a fae. So this is gnosis. Okay. Okay.
But not like a mortal witch.
No, she's not an immortal witch. She's immortal. Her house moves in different directions. Her gate has skulls of humans. She has wands that help her. She's got like things in her house that she controls that help her. There is a story called The Frog and the Prince. Okay, not the Princess and the Frog. And that's where I think that maybe Princess and the Frog got that from there. The difference is the prince marries the frog. And he marries the frog because his dad said all the princes have to marry. And he didn't want to marry a woman.
She's an ascended master. Sorry.
Not sorry. She's an ascended master.
She's an ascended
of a
master.
very darker archetype.
Yeah.
If you're not ready for your life to be shook, that's what we're going to get to in her lore. And you're not ready for the lesson, she's not going to appear to you. You have to seek her out, and you have to know for radical change is about to happen. Radical. Okay? So, the prince and the frog. The frog married the prince married the frog. And the dad had like little tasks, the king did, tasks for each of the princes that were married. There's like 3 princesses, they all got married. The frog won every single task, and then at the end, he found out that the frog was in fact a fae, because she turned human at the end, or humanoid, and then he chased her into the woods, and then Baba Yaga helped him capture the fae, and then go on his way. The interaction between Baba Yaga, or Yaga, and him was very much like, why are you here in my house? Oh yeah, she's a fae princess. I'll help you capture her and then leave. And that was the only folk story that I saw that had anything to do with an adult. An adult finding her home. Mm-hmm. Was this nobility. Okay, and I'm not saying you can't find her home if you're not nobility. I'm just saying that, like, all the other stories were based on children. Children that were told that they had to go into their woods to find their auntie. Yeah, she's the auntie in a lot of stories. To these moms that are stepmoms. And to give her an item, but the kids are always forewarned that if they go into the woods without protection, that they will be eaten. And there's many different ones that are like that. The little girl had a doll that her mom gave her before her mom died. And on her deathbed, she said that, when you're sad, you go into the corner, you feed this doll, you cry with it, you tell it your problems, and it will fix them for you. So, mom died, child had doll, dad married. My stepmom was like, hey, go into the woods and get this from auntie. And the doll's like, hey, you're gonna die. And he was like, I'll help you. But you gotta do exactly what I say. So, went into the woods. Yaga was like, what are you doing in here? I smell a child. Like, why are you in my house? And pursued to teach the child a lesson by forcing the child to do tasks that the child should not have been able to accomplish, but because they had the magical doll, they could. Which, by the way, that was poppet magic, 100%. She would cry with the doll and feed it, mm-hmm. and give it energy to help her on these tasks.
It is absolutely poppet magic.
And at the end, she was able to escape Yaga, and Yaga could not capture her. But yeah, like a lot of the stories were about these children going in there, learning a lesson, and then leaving, but they were able to survive. None of the children were eaten, okay? But I'm telling you, that old lady that lives in the woods is scary, and that's like the vibe of the folk tales.
Right.
Because people aren't ready for change if they don't want to accept it. And I can say that as a person, and I can say that as a psychic. Yeah, so, respect. She demands respect as an entity. How to work with her, don't unless you're ready. 100%. One of those entities that you don't unless you're ready. If you're ready for radical change, to learn lessons in ways that will hurt.
Yes. You're not escaping pain by working with Yaga.
No. Also, you can call her Baba Yaga, but also know that you might piss her off because you're not familiar with her. You can't go up to any grandma and be like, you're my grandma. That's not respect. Just because they're aged and wise does not mean you respect them by giving them a title. There has to be a familiar, I can't even, word.
Familiarity.
Yes. Okay, so that is all I can say. I don't really know what else to say, and I feel like I can't really say much more because people want a big bad. They really do, and I think that she became that for a lot of people. But respect.
Yes.
So, we're going to get on a little bit of a lighter topic, and we're going to talk about Mary Magdalene.
Yes. So,
Just,
are you going to go into detail about how to approach her and when to approach her?
Yeah, I guess I should.
And what she does for you if you work with her.
How to approach her would be respectfully. Divination 100%. Know that her energy is trickster-like. She is not a trickster, but she does do things to amuse herself, and she can do that at your own expense. When we did a reading with her, she was like back and forth about whether or not she wanted to be talked about, because she wanted to show her cantankerous nature, is what I'm being told to say.
And she enjoys being kept a mystery.
Yeah, she does. It's not bad to want to get away from society and live all by yourself. However, she does that for a reason, so don't come expecting her to shower you with gifts or to do anything you want of her. She's not a genie.
And she doesn't
want
any part in your parasocial relationships.
Period.
She
doesn't know. Like, you can get comfortable with her, I'm sure, but it's more of like when you come to her, you come with the gifts.
And you come
correct
to be taken out of your comfort zone, so there's no getting comfortable with her, honestly.
No. Yeah, you're right. So how you do it is respectfully. Read about her. If you feel drawn to her, approach her. But approach her like you would approach a rabid dog. Am I saying that she is that? No, I'm giving you the best example I can think of.
Use caution.
Yeah, don't just run at her. Don't expect her to give you riches or whatever, because she's primarily used and known for shaking up your life, and not in a comfortable way.
Right.
Also,
she is like an embodiment of the Tower card in tarot.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
That's a good example. Also, if you really want to, I'm not saying do this. I'm not saying do this. But I'm saying that she would happily help with hexes and curses. That's what she said. Gnosis.
Yes. Because she loves to teach people the hard lessons.
Yeah. No, the lessons that they're not ready for at all, because that's what jars people the most. Mm-hmm. So do research before you approach her. Look at all her lore, look at all the lessons, really deep dive like you would any other figure, or should with any other figure, because with this one, I would touch with a lot of safety gloves.
Yep.
I really don't know what else to say. Look her up, read her lore.
Exactly. There's a lot to learn. And she wants you to do the work before you come to her.
Be ready. Right.
So,
Mary Magdalene.
Let's talk about another Virgo related spirit, deity, person, historical figure. What is Mary Magdalene? Why is she associated with Virgo? Wasn't she a prostitute from the Bible? Isn't she the prostitute that followed Jesus around, washed his feet and shit?
Let's preface, though.
Right.
We're going to preface a little bit right now.
So, I'm obviously being silly.
No, she's being silly 100%,
right.
But we're going to preface with, there is no historical fact of whether a person has or has not survived time in biblical time period. Okay, that period.
Right. Well, there's a lot of evidence that these people did exist at some point, but there's also evidence to support that they didn't. So,
or that some may have died, some did not die when they died. There's a lot of things in between. We like to talk about evidence
as a person, not as an egregore.
Okay. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, in general, because she is in Christian mythos, and everything that is told historically that is not actually historical, like religion-based, is mythos.
She's mentioned in Christian mythos. She's a prominent figure in Gnostic mythos, which is a heretical branch of Christianity.
And Gnostic teachings are not all found in the Bible. I don't even think there's any Gnostic teachings in the Bible, period.
Right. So, a good example is... So, the Bible was determined by Roman Council, probably several hundred years after the stories were written, and they had a Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea determined which stories and passages would remain part of the Bible and what they considered divinely inspired versus what they basically threw away and said that,
like, the listing them would be the Book of Enoch, Infancy Gospel of Jesus,
the Book of Mary Magdalene, the Book of Judas.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot more. So that's just a handful of them. And these were all rejected Bible stories. Even the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, unfortunately, has several pages ripped out of it.
Yeah.
So we don't even have the complete Gospel of Mary Magdalene, unfortunately. But there's overlap in other Gospels that speak about Mary Magdalene that cross-reference each other and align with one another.
A lot of this is really...
And a lot of the missing information as
well. We want to give you, but also prefacing things, because we don't... If you're on here and you're not open-minded, I don't think you're ready for what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, this is not a Christian... I'm not going to give you a Christian interpretation of Mary Magdalene. I'm going to give you a full and, like... an all-inclusive interpretation of Mary Magdalene.
I need to tell you guys that if you're not here in love, that you gotta go. Because, like, really, we're here just to educate and what we've found and what we've read. And there's no purpose for you to be here if you're gonna get upset with us. Because...
That's not our purpose.
That's not our purpose. We're not doing any of this to elicit emotional responses.
We're not here to tell people what to believe and what not to believe.
We're just educating.
And everyone is encouraged to do their own research on these subjects.
100%.
Don't take our word for it.
Please
don't.
We have links and things, but there are things that we don't know, too.
And we are fallible. We have, I admit, we admittedly have gotten things wrong even on the podcast before.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Okay?
A few times. We both have.
Slipped up.
Because we're humans.
Right. You need to do your own research, okay?
Like, sometimes we can't even word right, okay?
Right. So.
And words are not always the best sometimes, either.
From the Encyclopedia of Spirits, let me get into this and cross-reference with my notes, because I also have a lot of notes as well. But even this book says, who is Mary Magdalene? Was she among Christ's most dedicated disciples? She's not even listed as a disciple. She's extra. She's number 13.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's something completely removed from the Bible. We'll preface that. Was she among the women who raised funds to support Jesus and his disciples? Well, I'm sure that was part of her role. I mean, logically speaking, with what we know and her closeness with Jesus, why wouldn't she help with the raising of funds? you know? Was she a repentant sinner?
We all sin, if you go by biblical things.
Yeah, some would say that we are all sinners.
If you believe in the Bible.
And if she's as holy as we're going to get into, she was repentant in whatever sins she had ever done, because that's how you become holy according to these scriptures. Was she a prostitute? And if so, what kind? Secular or a temple priestess? Was she Jesus's wife? These are all important questions to ask about Mary Magdalene, where some people would say because she's described as being Jesus's beloved companion, who he loved more than any other woman, specifically, right? And where he allegedly kissed her on the mouth. That's from a Gnostic gospel, not the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, but the Gospel of Philip, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on that. It's one of the Gnostic heretical texts where it states these things. Now, this may have been part of what was taken out of her specific story, right? Because there are pages missing. But she's described as a lot of things, either according to Christianity or to her personal gospel and other heretical gospel sources, right? They are conflicting stories. So let's talk about, was she a prostitute? Now, let's talk about where this rumor first started. We have an alleged 6th century false claim that Mary was a prostitute. This was by Pope Gregory, and he linked her to an unnamed woman who anointed Jesus' feet in the Gospel of Luke. So, some sources say the woman who was a repentant sinner, it was never prostitute, right? There's a lot of words that get missing in translation.
Yeah, a lot of words that get missing in translation.
So she was repenting her sins and offering to wash Jesus' feet. Was this the same woman as Mary or not? Now, a lot of women had the same common name that Mary derives from during, amongst the Hebrews specifically. So there's no way to really determine if that was the same woman or not.
Yeah, and when we were talking before the episode, something that I need to say now is, like, Not Another Spiritual Guru said, was that things get mistranslated from Hebrew to English. There were scribes by candlelight writing down these scriptures, and it's not just that either. With oral storytelling, things happen and are said and are retold like telephone. You remember playing that game in elementary school? You'd say something, somebody else says something, and then all of a sudden it's a whole nother thing, okay? So we're coming at this with education because we both wanted to know more about Mary Magdalene other than believing that she's a harlot.
So Mary of Bethany, who was sister of Lazarus, was the woman who washed Jesus' feet.
Yeah, and I myself has been rereading a book about Christian witchcraft, and it even talks about certain Hebrew words that mean way more than one word in English.
Right.
Like divination, pagan, witch, spirits.
And when you look into the multiplicity of
language,
of the multiplicity of interpretations of those words in accordance to the texts, you learn that it can mean a lot of different things.
And not everybody that reads all the different texts knows to look deeper than the English translation.
And we are going over one translation that really, honestly, it's interesting because we talk about the Book of Enoch, for instance, not being a part of the canonical Bible, and but there are African branches of Christianity who include the Book of Enoch in their religious texts in their Bibles. So that's an interesting fact. So some of these books have been reincorporated by certain specific branches, and mind you, there's thousands of branches of Christianity,
and there's tons of religions in the world,
and there's even more religions on top of that.
I was also told that this episode's really important for some reason. We're going to say something that a lot of people need to hear.
Right. So let's talk about the word virgin. How could she potentially be a prostitute or a temple priestess and be a virgin? Well, doesn't virgin mean a woman who's never had sex before? Maybe not. Does it mean a woman who's never been married? It was used in that context an awful lot back in those times. But ultimately, it comes down to meaning a woman who is whole and complete on her own. So we can all be whole and complete on our own without ever being married or being married. We can be whole and complete on our own while having had sex before or being celibate. What makes us whole has nothing to do with sexuality.
We talked about this personally, me and another spiritual guru, about how when people first meet us, we don't always lead with our kids or our husbands or whatever's going on in our life, because we are our own being, and that should be enough to whoever it is we're meeting for the first time.
Right, and it can get awkward sometimes because people expect you, especially, to drop the fact of whether you're in a relationship or not right away.
Or if you have kids or not. They want to know more things about you than you're willing to tell them because they're strangers.
But also, men, when you don't tell them right as soon as possible that you are in a relationship, a lot of times they assume that you're not, and they take that as an opportunity or an invitation to come at you a certain way. Unfortunately.
It is unfortunate, because you should be able just to have a conversation. Men should not lead with an expectation just because you're having a conversation with them, just like women shouldn't do that to men. Like, it shouldn't be expected to know everything about you just because I just met you.
I have also an interesting little input. So, you know how we were just talking about Yaga and how she's like an embodiment of the Tower moment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, Migdal, from which Magdalene derives, means a tower, a castle, a fortress, or raised up place. Her name may be interpreted as Mary, from the fortress, or Mary, who is the fortress. The name is also evocative of the high places associated with worship of the Hebrew goddess Asherah.
Asherah.
And we have mentioned Asherah before, and how she was potentially God's wife.
Yeah. So,
interesting how we're going to talk more about the fact that female erasure in Christianity, with the book of Mary Magdalene being removed from the Bible, or not accepted into the Bible, and the pages ripped out, are just another form of the importance of women in society. and the feminine aspects of the world and their importance being erased from the Christian history.
Because from the Mary Magdalene book and what we have, it's more about being oneness, being full, being loving, and it's not like the other books in the Bible where they focus on women being mothers and wives.
Oh, yes. It was the Gospel of Philip that mentions that Mary may have been Jesus' secret wife, that he loved her more than any other woman, and that he kissed her on the lips, is what is said in the Gospel of Philip.
Which is not in the Bible.
It is not in the Bible. It is in the Gnostic texts.
That's what we're trying to say about this whole thing, is that there's a lot of texts that are Gnostic texts that show you a bigger picture that you're not being told when you read your Bible or go to church, because they don't teach things for understanding.
So the exact words that are said in this quote is, Christ loved Mary more than all of the disciples and used to kiss her on the blank. So the word was completely removed. So it's assumed that it was mouth or lips.
It could have been forehead.
It could have been
hand.
vulva.
Could have been vulva. Maybe he was Gomez, though. Maybe. No.
I don't know.
BMR.
It could have been a lot of things, with the fact that it's
removed.
Redacted.
By the Council of Nicaea.
Says a lot. So many scholars agree the missing word is mouth. But that's what the scholars agree on, doesn't make it so.
No.
Right? Because there's no way to know. If the word's not there, it's not there.
When you talk about, there were books that were approved and not approved in the Council of Nicaea, why, though? Why didn't we allow it to be a whole scripture? Why were we taking out things and removing things? What's the point?
Control.
There you go.
Control. It was the point. And also erasing the importance of women, because the rise of patriarchy and the hatred of women was in the works during that time. And so they really wanted to take the feminine out of things as much as they could, because they didn't want women to be empowered the way Mary Magdalene was empowered.
That's an angel.
She's women empowerment to its core, honestly.
That's a ladder.
Yeah. It's a stairway to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It's a stairway to ascension.
Our candles are doing candles. We have a Mary Magdalene candle, a blue candle, which I think it is Michael, and then not gray. Sorry, blue candle Michael, Mary Magdalene red, gray Baba Yaga. Well, yeah. Mary Magdalene's candle looks like a stairway, wax dropping.
Which is interesting.
Michael's candle looks like an angel, and Baba Yaga's is not doing anything weird.
It is extremely clean, actually.
She's happy. Like, I'm just here. She's not happy, but she's like, I'm even.
So
you did good.
Ascension into the light.
Ascension into the light.
Ascension into the light. Mary was given exclusive teachings from Christ, and was the only person to understand his teachings in full. That's why they had such closeness. She was always by his side, the closest to him of anybody of his followers at any given time. And he would give her exclusive teachings because his other disciples weren't essentially ready for them. Also, he represents the feminine, or he represents the masculine as an egregore, and in general in the canonical stories. And Mary was always supposed to represent the feminine, and how masculine and feminine are equally important, and how Mary and Jesus were essentially equals, and he wanted to pass down his teachings through her to his disciples, because she was the one who truly understood what he was saying. So people know Jesus kind of talked cryptically and in parables and things like that. And people really didn't get where he was coming from all the time. But Mary did. Mary understood exactly what he meant. And she was the only one who truly understood exactly what he meant by his teachings.
And it's unfortunate that over the course of humanity's time on Earth that we treat each other horribly and don't acknowledge that we all in fact matter.
We all in fact matter. Not my next note being, we are mind, not matter, on my Mary Magdalene notes.
Look, we said I was a psychic, so no, for real, we all in fact matter. We all in fact do not deserve to be treated with atrocities amongst each other and fellow humans, but we do that, and it is horrible, and it's not okay.
Right. Let's talk passages from the Gospel of Mary. This is an interesting one. For where the mind is, there is the treasure. He does not see through the soul, nor through the spirit. But the mind that is between the two, that is what sees the vision.
I cannot right now.
Is everything okay, CinnamonGrove? Are you reaching enlightenment over there?
I may be reaching some enlightenment, but it's because of the gnosis of talking to Angel Michael and what you just said.
Say what you have to say.
Do you want me to say what he said? I don't know.
Say what you have to say, and then I'll read the next passage.
Talk to Angel Michael, and he was talking about how we all have a stream of consciousness and enlightenment with our own beings. We just have to accept it, and we don't need the excess external validation from other people to accept that.
Okay. It came to the third power, which is called ignorance. The power questioned the soul, saying, "Where are you going? In wickedness you are bound."
I fucking can't right now.
People who are bound in ignorance seek validation.
Because validation is a crutch to knowledge. What is even happening with this episode? I feel even more mind blown than earlier.
Bible is allegory, aspects of the mind. Overcome the demon of ignorance by gaining knowledge.
I slapped her leg. Sorry. No, I just said mind blown. What the fuck?
I was bound, but I have not bound. I have recognized that all is being dissolved, both the earthly things and the heavenly.
I hope you're gaining enlightenment.
And we can't really talk about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene without talking about Gnosticism and what Gnosticism is. So, Gnosticism, like I said, is a heretical branch of Christianity. Let's talk a little bit about what they believe. So Gnostics have a big bad, but the big bad is not the devil, like in Christianity. Big bad is Yaldabaoth, creator of the world, the demiurge, material realm. Keeping souls bound in a cycle of reincarnation, believing the material you is the real you will keep you trapped.
Did we just incite ego death in a lot of people?
Listen,
I can't
I am
right
the
now.
one true God, is what he says. But that is an allegory for ego. Ego, my body or earthly self, is the real me. is the same statement as Yaldabaoth saying, I am the one true God. Right.
Welcome to your deconstruction journey. Co-hosted and flown by CinnamonGrove and not another spiritual guru. What? I can't with this episode. This was a very important episode.
Who is the Most High Jesus speaks of in the Gospel of Mary? I don't descend from the God of this world, but the Most High is from which I came. So, what they say when they say the God of this world, they're speaking of Yaldabaoth, the creator God. The demiurge is what they believe him to be. What Jesus says, he is not of that God, who his followers worship. And Yaldabaoth and Yahweh would be seen as the same under different names. But Jesus says he doesn't come from the Creator. He comes from the Most High. He comes from Source. He comes from pure light. And that's what that means. Is Jesus a messenger of Sophia? Sophia derived from the Greek word for wisdom, knowledge from Christ, and wisdom from Sophia. So it's thought that we gain knowledge from Christ and wisdom from Sophia. So knowledge is the information, wisdom is how you apply it.
And also the experience.
Yeah.
Because you can't learn lessons just by knowing the thing. You have to experience it too. Like us talking to you about Yaga and Mary Magdalene, the experience of meeting them taught us different lessons. Not just learning. And meeting somebody and learning are two separate things.
So,
I don't know how to end this episode.
So, the Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code.
Let's talk about the Da Vinci Code. So, the idea that Mary was supposedly Jesus's wife, not just a beloved disciple or close companion, derives from the Da Vinci Code, which was written by Dan Brown.
It's a popular motion picture, and it's also a fictional work.
No, they were not invented by
Dan Brown wrote the book.
Nor by Michael Bajan, Richard Lee, or Henry Lincoln's 1982 study, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. These rumors date back to the early days of Christianity and stem mainly from Gnostic sources. Okay, so she's written about being Jesus' secret wife in these texts, but the original comes from Gnostic texts, including but not limited to the Gospel of Philip, which we have just talked about. He refers to Mary as Jesus' companion, using the Greek word indicating partner and consort. So once again, talking about how these words mean different things. And this one was written in Greek, so not in Hebrew. And the Greek words mean different things too sometimes. Hold on a second. So, in the Gospel of Philip, he also talks about how 3 women always followed Jesus closely. His mother, the Virgin Mary, his sister, which is unnamed here, and Mary Magdalene, called his companion. For Mary is the name of his sister, his mother, and his companion. I'm sorry.
That sounds triple heady.
That is, yeah.
The
so
maiden,
they do mention
the mother, and the crone.
His sister's name was Mary.
Who may have been the maiden.
The fact that there are so many Marys just in these texts alone leads to the idea that is very confusing on, was Mary this, or was she that, or was she the other, because the names that they went by that, mean Mary, were all very common name. It was a very common name. We can say Mary was a common name, but it wasn't Mary, right? They weren't going by Mary during that time. They were called something else. Like the word, in Hebrew, the word was Migdal. Remember? Well, that's where Magdalene derives from, not Mary. But, for instance, like, these names were common. So common that Jesus' mother, sister, and close companion all had the same name and all followed him everywhere he went. Okay.
Ultimately, Mary is about the teachings of Jesus, and she has her own teachings as well in the Gospel of Mary. And it's wildly different than how you're taught to know.
I definitely recommend, I don't want to reveal too much, because I want everyone here to go on and do their research and find the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and read about this gospel themselves, because it's not a long gospel. It's not long at all. It's very short.
You're not going to read it for an hour.
Exactly. It'll just take you a few minutes, and if you go and you read it,
we'll link things that we have.
Right. It can help you on your personal enlightenment journey, because
as well as
that's what the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is all about. Ascension. While on earth, you can still ascend to your light body.
And I did joke about welcome to your deconstruction journey.
Right.
But honestly, it wasn't a joke. Probably if you felt like this message resonates at all, you need to go, and if you haven't deconstructed, start to, because we are acknowledging the fact that mythology is not always true. Events don't always happen, and knowing now, if you didn't already know, that there was a council that was pulling books out of the Bible, kind of like early veto, like getting rid of things.
Yeah, the Nicene Council.
You need
Write
to go
that
back.
down. Nicene Council. Look it up.
You need to look at things. That's why we tell you guys to look at things. Mary's energy evened out the energy in the room.
Yeah, it did. Oh, yeah, it did.
And she is a kind energy.
Yeah.
An empowering energy.
She is very kind, and the difference is between her and Yaga are like night and day. But they're also similar in so many ways, because Yaga also brings you enlightenment, but through darkness.
Through darkness
itself.
Yeah, you're right.
And shadow work. You
still have to do work with Mary, but it's framed in a different way.
It's not of the shadow, it's of the light. So one is shadow and one is light.
The archetypical energy is important to know, especially before you start talking to entities, or even just like if you're reading a story or watching a movie. Everything has a purpose and a role to play.
Also, it's about push and pull, right?
It is push and pull.
So our spirit guides push and pull us along the way to teach us the lessons the way we need to be taught.
And sometimes it's the hard way.
And sometimes it is the hard way.
And other times it's not hard, and it's lovingly.
Sometimes it's lovingly, exactly.
But you can still lovingly burn your hand on the stove and hurt really, really bad. But also purposely get your hand put on the stove and it not be kind.
Right. So we're looking at duality.
Definitely duality.
As above, so below.
This episode.
So, yes, please read the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of Philip, the Book of Enoch, the Gospel of Judas, and any other
Gnostic texts that you can find.
or heretical, non-canonical biblical texts, because they are still biblical in nature in spite of them not being in the canonical Bible as we know it today.
You know, and this is the issue that we live in the South, and I, as a psychic who actually do this for a living, you come across people that assume that just because I work with spirits, talk to spirits, I don't know anything about the Bible or the texts not in the Bible or the history at the time of the Bible. And it's just an assumption based on, I believe this, so you should believe this. I believe in hell, so you should believe in hell. And that's not how religion works. That's not how belief works.
Right.
You can't force it on people.
Also, there's one more context in which I'd like to mention Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And that's her association with the Venusian priestesses. So that comes up. Was she a temple priestess? So the temple priestesses were Venusian priestesses or priestesses of Venus, and they practiced sex magic.
It's a thing. We're going to talk about it more in February.
That's another reason why the question of virginity or prostitution comes into play, because when they were trying to enact Christianity as the main religion of the time, they were trying to erase a lot of other forms of spirituality during the time and downplay, demonize, and disregard certain spirituality. So, for instance, the Roman pantheon was being either erased or replaced. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, we can even put it back to the fact that this happens even in America when we came over to America. And what did they do to Native Americans in America?
Right. So, the significance of womanhood and the demonization of female empowerment was coming into play during this time as the uprise of patriarchy was taking over. And so Venusian priestesses were never seen as whores and prostitutes until they were coming to demonize women, right? So now all of this is unholy practices, and it's considered bad. These women are prostitutes. All of this came later when Christianity was coming to be enforced, right? Because it eventually did become enforced. So was she or wasn't she Venusian priestess? There's no solid proof, but there are interesting connections between her and Venus and her and Aphrodite and there was something else.
I didn't hear you. I had to go pee.
Yeah. She's got these connections. To possibly being this. So that it's rumored, but it's not widely accepted that she was one of these priestesses. Understood?
We have the links. They're below. Read them.
It's really hard to find information.
It was very at the bottom of this link that I'm listed, because I remember scrolling and reading, and it was at the very bottom. But it was all about Mary Magdalene. All the info is below.
Right, yeah.
We're very transparent at trying to give you access to what we're actually talking about.
Right.
And that's why we're encouraging you to go look at the links. Go Google it.
Right.
Look at credited sources.
Yeah, because I can't tell you that she definitely was one of these priestesses.
We weren't there.
Right. So, and it's not talked about in her gospel. So, there's that. So, there are rumors say that she was practicing sex magic amongst the disciples. It might just be a way of discrediting her holy nature, honestly. Or the fact that she was doing that was just demonized and in order to discredit her holy nature. But she's known as a holy woman, a whole on her own, or a virgin.
And in 2024, why are we discrediting people for having sex?
Exactly. So, talk about archaic beliefs, right? So, we don't have to accept something if we know that it's morally unjust to do so. We don't have to. We know that it doesn't make you less of a person. Nothing's being taken from you just because you had sex.
We're not saying go do it.
You are still complete on your own.
Be the age of consent.
And understand yourself fully in the context of consent as well, because sometimes we consent to things in our physical bodies that our spirit wouldn't consent to if we consulted them.
And you still have value even if something was taken from you without consent.
Exactly.
We love you. We'll get help if you need help and you're having a hard time.
Right. So I think for the most part, that concludes our talk about Mary Magdalene. Now, some ways you can reach out to her. She's one of the most open and loving of Ascended Masters.
With the parallel that we did today.
Right. Because UPG, I was told earlier by
Yaga?
a spirit guide.
No.
Not Yaga.
Okay.
So I was told earlier by a spirit guide that humans are not the last stage before God. So evolution, like, you know what I mean? Like, we evolve as we ascend, and we don't become gods after we become humans. Like, does that make sense? And I was also told in a funny way that we all start as bugs, but that wasn't like a literal thing. You know what I mean? We all start as bugs, but we all start from the bottom and work our way up. And humans are I don't know how to explain it. We're not right before ascending into gods. We have to ascend into Ascended Masters first. So that was the connection that I was making. Because earlier it was really funny because that came to me when you were talking about Yaga. I was like, she's an ascended master. Like, I was being compelled to say it like that because
there was a lot of things we both.
Because we're talking about like, is she a witch? Well, when you think of someone's a witch, that's a human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she's not a witch as a human being, just like Merlin's not a wizard as in a human being, but as an ascended master.
Yeah.
So there's ascended masters, there's angels, there's fae.
But you can't be an angel or a fae if you are human.
There's gods and goddesses.
Yes.
And they're not the same.
Yeah, so there's a snippet of what we've learned. It's a lot of things that's happened today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and if, drink water, eat food, seek help if you need it. Look into info. It's below. If you enjoy our episodes, follow us. This one was pretty...
intense.
It was intense, yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks for listening, and if you're now on your deconstruction journey, look for credited sources.
Right, exactly. Once again, do not take our word for it. We do have links. We do have links where we got our information from, and I did read directly from the Encyclopedia of Spirits.
Yeah.
The ultimate guide to the magic of fairies, genies, demons, ghosts, gods, and goddesses. You can find it on Amazon.
You can, yeah.
It's a thick boy.
It's a thick book. All right. Thanks for listening to us. Drop a like, follow, comment, share. Help us out. That always helps us. If you enjoy this, share it with other people. Get thought-provoking conversations started.
Right. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
And Virgo season.
And Virgo season. Goodbye.
Goodbye.